Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 18 is just a few days away from being shown for the very first time. This should be one of the biggest updates we've seen in many years, based on all of the different leaks and rumors, and I thought we'd go over all of the expected new features as there's quite a bit to talk about. We'll see it for the first time at WWDC 24 or the Worldwide Developer Conference 2024 that takes place on June 10th. You can watch it online at Apple or YouTube at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time. Now, as far as the supported devices, well, it looks like, according to all of the leaks, that we're going to get the exact same device support that we have with iOS 17. That means the iPhone SE 3rd generation, the iPhone XS, XS Max, all the way up to the 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max, and of course the iPhone 16 when those launch later this year. Now, the big update that many people have been wanting for years looks like it's going to happen this year, according to Mark Gurman, where we'll be able to actually rearrange our icons in a way that we haven't been able to, at least on iOS. We should be able to place them anywhere and even be able to group them and change the color of them based on that grouping. So maybe you want something that's related to messages in your phone. Instead of just being green, we could change those to orange. Or maybe music and podcasts and Spotify. Put those in a music group that's maybe red or blue. Whatever you choose apparently is something we're going to be able to do. We can expect widget updates, of course. We don't know specifically what that means, but we do know that Apple is planning to update the control center to allow us to rearrange things. We're supposedly getting some new music widgets, maybe some redesigns with the home controls, and the ability to move different icons wherever we want. So not a full redesign, but a more customizable design compared to what we currently have. So we'll be able to move everything around, hopefully how we want it, maybe a cleaner layout, and a cleaner layout will carry across to settings as well. So the latest information says that settings will be customizable and to the point where we can change the overall maybe groupings of them. Maybe they'll actually be just organized better overall, and this is supposed to carry across to macOS 15, where we'll just have better organization of things. Maybe instead of being menus and menus deep, we'll just have them sort of arranged where it makes more sense. It's just a long scrolling menu at this point. Maybe it'll be grouped into different third-party apps, maybe developer, maybe things to do with photos and camera all together. I would love to see that, and I would love to see some settings actually go directly into the device. So instead of having to go back out into settings, maybe we could control everything from the camera directly. Now, we are supposed to get some button updates as well, so where we have buttons up at the top, whether that's the settings button or something else, those are said to be getting a redesign, and so it's going to look a little bit different this time around. Maybe not a full redesign, but at least we'll have some refreshed icons. Hopefully we'll get some icons refreshed as far as what we have here, maybe to look more like what they do on the Mac, or maybe a new design altogether, but there hasn't been a lot of information about that specifically. Now, we are supposed to get the Calculator app finally for the iPad. This is said to be coming to the next iPad OS update, and all of these features I'm mentioning are supposedly coming to the iPad as well. So most of the same things will carry across both devices. We really haven't heard a whole lot of changes coming to the iPad, even though we could see those as a surprise. We haven't heard a whole lot of information. And within the Calculator, we can expect an updated interface, possibly a new sidebar with recent calculations, and that makes a lot of sense going to the iPad, where now we currently can rotate it and get sort of a scientific calculator. We'd have a sidebar with our recent sort of calculations, and then maybe some enhancements there as well, but also available on iPad, so that would be great. Many people have been wanting some changes to Apple CarPlay, and it looks like it's going to get a few, and we've heard about some coming from Apple, where it's going to gain some things such as voice control and color filters and sound recognition, and you'll be able to navigate it a little bit better with your voice when you're in the car. There's also possibilities of design changes, but we're not hearing a whole lot as far as that goes. Most of these are related to accessibility features we'll talk about in a little bit. Of course, one thing Apple announced earlier this year was RCS messaging is coming to Messages. If we go into Messages, RCS will allow for things such as reactions to show properly, whether you're giving a thumbs up, doing something else throughout Messages. It will just work better overall within groups, and it will be much better, hopefully, when you're talking to someone that's not on an iPhone. We'll also get updates as far as AI-generated emoji. Supposedly you're talking about something and maybe you say the word happy. You can not only get the emoji here, but based on your conversation, supposedly there'll be AI-generated emoji that are things we haven't seen before. We'll also get text effects where you can press and hold. We currently have screen effects, but we should get similar effects that carry over specifically to the text themselves. So if we want to send this, of course, we have different screen effects where we have things in the background, and those could, again, would carry over to individual texts. Also, when you press and hold with tap back, this is supposedly getting a redesign as well. Now, Siri is supposedly getting a very big update with AI as well, allowing it to have something called catch up that allows you to ask Siri to get you kind of up to date with whatever's going on your device, whether that's news, maybe messages, maybe music that was just released, or other things that have just happened. Different notifications would come in and let you know what's actually going on. So that would actually be great to have sort of a catch up version of Siri, letting you know all of everything just going on, maybe in a summarized version. And that's the other thing, there's something called summarization. Again, similar to what I just mentioned, it will be able to summarize information within Safari, similar to what other browsers can do now, notes and voice memos, and also transcribe a lot of that audio. So we're expecting all of those things along with natural language to go along with Siri, getting a big update with large language models. So the AI enhanced Siri will just basically be more natural and have responses closer to maybe what ChatGPT does or Google's Gemini. So things like that seem to make a lot of sense if they're going to heavily implement AI. We're also supposed to get better in-app updates as far as Siri goes, with the ability to open things within apps themselves, such as maybe move a note from one folder to another, open specific documents, delete emails, maybe summarize an article like I mentioned before, email a web link, or even opens things specifically in Apple News. So if you wanted to open a specific thing you're subscribed to in News Plus, whether that's a magazine or something else, you could tell it to open it and go directly to a part of that magazine. So it's just better integration with Siri overall. And if it actually turns out to be what's rumored, this could be a really great update to have a really good assistant built into your iPhone. Now, there's something new coming called cross-device control, and while we can use Siri to play music, we'll be able to better control it across different devices. So maybe we wanted to play music on one HomePod and maybe a HomePod in another room, but not everywhere. We could tell Siri to send that information or that music to those specific devices. So maybe a Mac, one HomePod, and maybe one in your living room as well. Those sorts of things will be possible, apparently, with the upcoming Siri update. Siri will also be able to understand multiple requests at once, but this may not launch initially with iOS 18. Some of these features will launch a little bit later in the year as Apple has time to prepare and get them ready. That's pretty typical what they do every year, so it could come as late as 2025 with something along the lines of iOS 18.5 or maybe 18.4. We don't really know what's going to be delayed and what's going to be initially, but that's something we could see. We'll also only see some of these features specific to on-device AI on the iPhone 15 Pro Max and iPhone 16. Supposedly, some of the features will not be able to be all on-device if you don't have the latest devices. Again, very typical of Apple to include some features with the latest devices, but we don't have a list of what that will be until they actually announce it. And of course, I'll cover that in a future video where we go over everything that's actually coming to different devices. Now, Siri is said to also integrate better with shortcuts. That makes a lot of sense. We can already do that. What that means as far as enhancements, we don't really know. Maps is said to get an update as well. So if you're using Apple Maps, if we go into that and maybe we search for different routes where we live and we want to set a specific route ourselves, apparently we'll be able to do this with iOS 18. So instead of taking the different routes it's given us, we could take different routes that we already are familiar with and just get the traffic information based on that. That makes a lot of sense. We've seen this with other device apps as well, such as Google Maps. Photos is also set to benefit from AI this year, where we'll have on-device photo editing, so it would be able maybe to remove things from the background easier, things similar to what we see with Google Photos already, but maybe go in and edit one. So instead of just editing this wallpaper, of course linked in the description, we'd be able to not only crop it, but also enhance it with AI and do other things. Also, possibly we'll be able to generate images similar to other AI platforms as well, directly on device. That could carry over just to wallpaper or something else. Now, we know Notes is going to get that summarization feature I mentioned about earlier, but apparently there will be integration with something called Math Notes, according to Apple Insider. Math Notes should help you with math overall, where it could solve different problems. So maybe you put in a mathematical equation, a quadratic equation, it would help you solve that and maybe even tell you how to solve that, or just something simple like 2 times 4 and then give you the answer. You also will get updates apparently to the keyboard that will help you do that as well, with predicting those mathematical expressions as you type them. Of course, we could get some cloud-based AI features as well, as Apple's been working with OpenAI, but we don't know specifically what that means, whether or not that will be things that are offloaded from the device. Apparently it will be anonymous and, of course, privacy focused, and maybe we'll be able to just turn those off altogether if we don't want to use that. We'll also benefit from smart replies in different applications, such as messages that I mentioned before, Siri, and Mail. And Mail is also set to get some improvements for search with contacts, locations, and local document search. So just enhancements there. We don't know if it's going to allow for even more enhancements within Mail. Safari is set to get a design overhaul this time around, where it would have not only a different design, maybe they'll move the bar back up to the top. They do this every couple of years. We don't really know, but intelligent search is coming to Safari, along with summarizations, web eraser that will allow you to remove unwanted portions of a web page, and then maybe updated quick access menus, similar to the share sheet. So you would have more information here, maybe a redesign altogether, but we should see that with this update. We'll also see an update with Apple Music, where it's supposed to have sort of smart song transitions. We currently have crossfade. If we go into our music here, you can set crossfade where it fades from one song to another, but then it would be on device and more intelligent this time around. We could also benefit from auto-generated playlists. So we currently have our own playlists we create, and within our library, of course, we've got those, but we could have auto-generated ones on device, not ones such as Replay 2022 that Apple generates off device. Now, we're also expecting updates for AirPods. Of course, we already have some of those updates. We got quite a few last year with the iOS 17 update, and this year it's said to add more to accessibility, where we could have something called a hearing aid mode. So if you're using your AirPods Pro with your device, maybe directly in accessibility, we'll have something that's hearing aid related, even though these aren't certified hearing aid devices. So those sorts of updates make sense, and we've heard a little bit about that. Now, we know already that Apple's got a lot of accessibility features planned as well. I've covered those in a separate video, but let's just touch on those briefly. And Apple announced these on May 15th. If we scroll down, we can see some of those features such as eye tracking, which is coming to iPhone and iPad, music haptics, so you can feel your music using the Taptic engine. We also will get different things such as vocal shortcuts to help us power our device and sort of set up what we want to say to trigger an event. Vehicle motion cues to help with reducing motion sickness if you want to use your device. That's something I personally can't do, is use my device and not feel nauseated while I'm in a car or moving vehicle, and this would be great if it actually works that way. Again, like I mentioned earlier, CarPlay is going to get some voice control updates with accessibility. Hopefully we'll get some sort of redesign, but they're showing what it looks like here with maybe recognizing a siren or something else. And then, of course, updates coming to Vision OS as well. Also in the fine print that they mentioned below, there's updates to things such as Magnifier, where it would have a new reader mode and have sort of an action button for detection mode, so that's great. Braille screen input improvements, hover type, personal voice, and much more. So this is great. We're going to have all of those along with switch control. So those are all coming with iOS 18. We know that for sure, as Apple's already showed it off. And I'll link that in the description if you want to check it out. But that includes updates such as VoiceOver and, again, those motion cues for vehicle. I'm looking forward to that. Personal voice will also get an update to go along with it. Now, we're also going to get some Spotlight search improvements, and these won't be huge, but just improved search in general with sorting options. So if we're searching for Apple, maybe we'll be able to sort this a little bit better. We're also said to get voice memo improvements. So if you're using voice memos, wherever I have that, it will actually do live transcription. So we've seen that throughout some of the OS already. It would be able to transcribe that on device and just give you what you've said back. So that could be great if you're trying to maybe make captions for something or just having that in general. The Fitness app is also said to get some sort of overhaul, and it looks like Apple is actually planning to update just about every app there is. So we'd get an overhaul according to the different rumors. Calendars and reminders is said to sort of integrate together to allow you to use those better together. That makes sense since you'd want a reminder within your calendar. And then also Freeform is set to get some updates. Now, I haven't really used Freeform a whole lot, hardly at all. There will be different scenes that you can create within Freeform to help you better find what you've already worked on. And then maybe you're working on a big board sharing with someone else. They'd be able to find your information a little easier within those scenes. The Health app is said to be getting some updates, but we don't know specifically what that means, but more AI related. And one of the things we're not hearing is anything about split view. Now, I know a lot of people, if you're coming over from Android, would want that, where we would have one app, maybe music here, Safari at the top, or maybe YouTube at the top. I find picture-in-picture does a pretty good job that way, but either way, I know a lot of people would really want split view and just more customization in general. It looks like we'll definitely get that customization, but as far as split view, it's hard to say. Apple may surprise us, but there's a lot to talk about, and Apple will probably unveil even more for one of the biggest updates we've seen in many, many years, if not ever. Now, let me know if there's features that you'd still like to see Apple add that I haven't mentioned, or what you think you would like to see specifically in iOS 18 or iPadOS 18. I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.